process. Still don't know if we won, but from what I understand, our stack of votes was higher than most. So it's not official, but we did do a good job. I don't know how, I haven't heard the numbers on the turnout.
It was awful close to last year's, I believe. Some nights were above, some were below. But,
We do have a board meeting on this coming Thursday, so anybody's welcome. If you wanna sit in on a board meeting. Steve, you got anything?
you know, I'm still looking for a place for our meeting in February, because Peter Katowski called me back and said he decided he would not do it, so, because we were gonna be going there, but, so, gotta come up with a place for a meeting, so.
So if you guys have any suggestions on that or something, or, you know, give Steve a call and we'll check it out. Yeah, Jeff.
Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine just last night about, we were looking for a big room to have a memorial service in. How about the mission room?
We have been there before and even talked about them potentially for the Christmas meeting, but Kylie was gone and I needed to have something before she got back to me. But that's a possibility. I may reach out to her again and see.
I don't know, personally, I haven't been there in a long time.
Yeah, we had a meeting there several years ago, but, so, you know, and David had sent me a message about a museum in Albany that has a meeting room. Never been there, but I called and got a hold of them, and they have a standing reservation for the first Saturday of every month, and have had for years. So that doesn't work. So, but it's always nice to go someplace we haven't been to before. The Polk County Museum was very nice. It was a pretty nice museum, had a lot of interesting stuff, and so that worked well. But, so anyhow, and I want to thank everybody that helped with Holiday Sparkles. Frank did a huge amount, Phil, John came and helped, the last weekend, every night out there. We didn't get rained on except the last night. David helped some. If there's somebody else in here that helped,
I help by staying out of your way.
David and Kathy, and so, and we got it, Frank and I, and Phil, and my granddaughter Elizabeth came on Monday. It seemed funny taking down Christmas decorations before Christmas, but we were done, and so we got the parking lot all cleared out, and then we got some more here today, and Phil's gonna come by one of these days with the boom truck and get the stuff up top, so we're in pretty good shape. We're gonna try, when the meeting's done, to put some of it away. It's all in the garage out there, so Frank's in charge of that, so.
So we're gonna try and get it back up on the pallet racking to where we can actually move again in the garage, because we just stuffed it in there. Other than that, next Saturday class will be the mini swap meet, and that's the last Saturday in January. February, we're still working on having a guest speaker on
Yeah,
that.
I'm not sure yet. I'm still trying to find that out, so.
So, and then either March or April, we'll either do Babbitt or Meg. Kind of depends on the weather and Jim Barrett. So, that's what I have. I don't know if that's show and tell or sale or what on that.
Probably both.
Yeah.
I brought show and tell.
That's always
Okay.
acceptable.
I brought the jug full of springs, dump them out in that box, take a spring if you need it. The octane booster is free if you can use it. The little bracket for gauges, I've got boxes full of them. If you need one of them, take it. The buzz coils, I'd kinda like to get $5 a piece for, but that was our trade table.
Guaranteed to work?
Oh, yes. They were working when they quit.
They were last used.
30 seconds to the property line.
Yeah.
So what'd you bring, George?
Oh. Anyway, prior to Christmas, I bought myself a Christmas gift. I bought a 26 Model T Speedster.
Saw the pictures.
And anyway, Ross has been helping me a little bit, and so I'm gonna working on it the last few days or whatever. And one of the first things I decided I needed to do is I needed to take the radiator off so I could remove the ornament that they had put on it in '74. You know, the guy that built it in '74, one of his sons was in high school metal foundry class, and so he cast a little hood ornament that they had on the front of the car, and I didn't think Catherine would appreciate it, so I took it off. I'll just pass it around. That's what high schools were doing in '74.
Yeah.
I was not.
The other thing is, you know, it's a roadster and it's got a leather strap that goes over the hood if you want to run it. But the thing that was really interesting is I've never seen a spring like that. It's got, you know, a fair
Wow.
amount of tension. I don't know what you'd even call this spring. Is it an accordion spring?
It was
or-
probably round and it fell off and he ran over it.
Yeah. But anyway, I just brought it along and I thought, well, that is a really odd spring. I've never seen anything like that.
Makes me think of some of the strange things that J.C. Whitney used to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I guess I will turn it over to Dave and let him go to town.
Okay. The biggest question everybody asks is, why does the piston have that little dome on it, or deflector? Oh, and everybody asks, which way does it go? It goes on the intake side of the cylinder. If you can come up and look at this one. You see how the piston is kind of made, it comes up. This is the intake side, carburetor comes in, and it deflects the fuel air mixture up. And at the same time, it is blowing it out the exhaust port as it comes up and on compression. This engine, 1906 little skipper. Les gave it to me, it was a pile. So I said, I'm gonna make a cutaway of it. So this is a 3-port engine. 2-cycle engines are 2-port, 3-port, or a 3-2-port. It has to do with where and how the ports are positioned on the cylinder. The Maytag is a 2-port engine. Oops, that was me?
It's got a spring, it'll bounce.
Yeah, all right, yeah. This is a crankcase for Maytag upright, 2-port. You see the inlet port here, and also the small crankcase. The reason a 2-cycle engine has a small crankcase is so when the piston comes down, it has less volume to compress the fuel to blow it up into the combustion chamber. If it's too big, it wouldn't get the pressure to blow it up there. It also acts as a scavenging to blow the exhaust gases out. When I cut this engine apart, this is a piece I cut off of it. I'll set this around. I've taken a lot of these apart, and I always got these grooves on the inside of the cylinder. People take these engines apart, they don't put the wrist pin back in them right. And it scalds the cylinder. You guys come up and look at this when you want.
If you remember back when Dave Birch gave us a whole pile of stuff, That was one of the last pieces laying out here that nobody wanted. And it was hurt. One of the flanges is broke off below, and like he said, I think the piston was stuck when I gave it to you, wasn't
Yes.
it? So it was given to us, and I gave it to him, and look at it,
Yeah.
it's a fine display.
What'd you cut it with?
Cut off wheel, and then
Uh,
the board over here, I used the mill.
When we got that stuff from Dave Birch, Mark and I crawled through quite a pile of rat crap to get under the tables to drag all that stuff out there.
Yep.
That was a mess.
that is one of those mentions.
Yeah.
Some other questions that have come up is, why do two-cycle engines have a check valve on them? Well, they either have a check valve or a carburetor with a check valve. Lukenheimers have got the check valve in them. So when it comes down and the gases in the crankcase blow back, it won't blow back out of the carburetor. Some of them, like this little moped engine, use the piston to close that port off. And it's all in the timing where the position of that port is located. I've got some handouts up here that gets into that.
Tell me again about the dome on the top of the piston, it goes towards the intake?
Yes.
The tall part goes towards the intake.
Yeah.
How do you put wrist pin in wrong? I don't understand.
Yeah.
You
They-
get the center.
Most wrist pins fit the piston. It's either a press fit and the rod floats on the piston,
Yeah,
and the wrist pin is stationary in the piston, or it's stationary on the rod. They don't get it positioned right, it'll slide out and score the cylinder.
right.
Or they go, oh, I'm a semi-machinist, like half of us in here, and they make it too long.
So they don't have a set screw to hold it. wrist
Some of
pin.
them have a set screw, some of them have a pin, some of them are just a press fit, some of them have just snap rings.
Yeah, right, but those just don't press in on that.
Yeah.
What you're saying?
You can take a look at this cylinder here, Maytag, and you can see what I'm talking about. It's got both sides of it really bad.
Well, and if those pinch bolts or the set screws can come loose, or don't most of them have like a little flat spot or dimple that set screw will go into?
Yeah.
If you miss that dimple a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also with the ones with a set screw, especially on the older ones, they'll have a lock nut. You set the set screw in there and make sure you tighten that lock nut, or it'll back out and then things slide around. On a couple engines, I've rebored them, and you take the sleeve and you gotta measure where all the ports are, let it out, cut them on the sleeve, and then you bore it and you press it in. A lot of times when you press the sleeve into a cylinder, it'll turn just a little bit as it's going in. So then you gotta sit there and go with your little die grinder and finish it off, if you can get to them. Depends on the design of them. You guys can come up here later on. And on this one, you can also see what I'm talking about with storing the cylinder. I got a flashlight here. You can look in here and storing the cylinder, and you can see how sloppy the wrist pin is in this thing. Hear it?
Bruce and Clark was
Yeah. Okay, you guys need some more handouts?
Yeah, they didn't get all the way.
Okay.
Start them the other way, maybe.
All right. There's some more, there's some Well, this cutaway or drawing of a 92 shows the little check valve for the carburetor. Pass those around. They've all got to have some kind of way of shutting that port off, whether it's a piston or a check valve. Also, you can look at on this one, the check valve is right under that big nut on these upright Maytags. On this, like on the Maytag like that, there's this little thing in the bottom here, it's called a deflutter valve.
Deflutter.
Yeah. Well, this one's not all there, but, what it does, it allows any excess fuel in the crankcase to drain back into the gas tank of it. And then there's a check valve there that will keep it from, blowing up.
Yeah.
So our rules tell me that if the carburetor is mounted on the crankcase and it's gotta have a reed valve or a check valve.
Yeah, so
But if it's mounted on the cylinder, then it doesn't?
well, it could. Like the cutaway there, it's mounted on the cylinder, and it's got a check valve.
Would it run without it?
Nope. You need that valve.
When did they start using reed plates? You know, that is the check valve, but
Yeah, I would say in the 40s, especially on the two-cycle motorcycles and stuff like that. And outboards and drag saws, you know, some of those.
Thank you, Terry.
And then when they came up with the chainsaw, I think a lot of those used a reed valve. But you gotta have some kind of way of stopping that pressure from blowing back. And that's what that valve does. I think if you look at this one, you can see the intake port and the piston closes it off if you look real close. Okay, more questions?
I wonder if that isn't, you know, that little, one-cylinder Evinrude you have, it's specifically done and covers all the three ports that have been drilled below the block into the crankcase.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
I've been thinking on that ever since you showed me that, Wayne, and I still haven't come up with a good reason why.
Me either.
I did some little reading and stuff, and they drilled holes on the inlet side, trying to get more power out of them. You know, this engine here is rated at a 1.5 horse, and it probably weighs about 30, 40 pounds. A 4-cycle engine would weigh twice that.
Yeah.
So the 2 cycles are lightweight, you know, a little bit higher RPM, and it is compared to a 4-cycle. Everybody's heard of a 671 Jimmy? That's a 2-cycle engine. That blower on the side of that thing is to scavenge it, just like piston does here. Blows the air into it.
Yeah, they've got valves too.
Yeah. It's got exhaust valves.
Yeah.
What's neat about those things, you can have them right hand turning or left hand turning. All you gotta do is switch everything to the other side. It will go the other way.
Yeah.
They'll go the other way on fumes also.
Yeah. Also, you gotta be careful that on any of these 2-cycle engines, no matter if it's a Jimmy, a diesel, or what, crankcase explosions, they will or could explode on you. everything's not right.
Well, the biggest thing on the Jimmy is the blower seal going out.
Mhm.
They got a little flap valve in there and it's supposed to shut the air off if it starts to run away.
Also, you look at these older engines, like on the bearings, the length of them, you know, that gives a lot of support to the crank and everything, but also, it also seals the crankcase. You know, everybody's cranked and cranked and cranked on an old two-cycle engine and go, these things are a piece of junk, you know, they never run. Well, they're sucking air where they're not supposed to.
Yeah, when I used to work in a lawnmower shop, and in the wintertime we did snowmobiles, and the seals on the crankshaft, a lot of times were worn, and the customer would bring them in and say, hey, this thing doesn't start. So the trick that we used was squirt heavy oil on those seals, and it would seal it up long enough to get it started and say, there's your problem, lady.
Yeah, yeah. Also, in a boat, you know, you either had a drip oiler on them, but it's down the bilge, those old wooden boats leaked, you fill up with water, put a grease cup on it, thing will run underwater as long as the intake is above the water line. You know, seals it up.
So in a boat, is that flat or on an angle?
Usually they're about a 7 to 10 degree angle, about like that.
So is the carburetor adjusted for that angle?
Yeah.
or-
That, yeah, so put that in there and then you square the carburetor up so it's straight up and down.
The reason I was asking is because I had a Muncie, Wisconsin marine engine, single cylinder. And with the engine at that degree, the carburetor was level for the flow.
Yeah. Okay,
So
more questions?
part of why that they're lighter is there's less parts, but also you get more power out of them because they fire every time.
Right, right. If you look on the handout, the last page, I think it's down there. Gets into, like I was saying, where the, where the ports are located by this diagram. The very last page. And it kind of explains why here too. It gets a little complicated, you know, they are a simple engine, but the design of them, you know, is pretty complicated. Because if you don't get the ports and stuff right, you know, it's not gonna produce the power you want.
Also on your crankshaft sealing, there are some two-strokes that have what they call air stop rings inside the crankcase. It's supposed to keep the air from blowing out of there.
Yeah. A lot of, like, I think everybody's got at least one Maytag engine of some kind kicking around. Take a, like on the 92s, take a neoprene O-ring and stick in there. And when you put the flywheel and stuff on it, that'll seal that up. You don't have to take the engine apart.
Say that again.
Take a neoprene O-ring, put on the crank on both sides, and then when you put the flywheel on and the gear, starting gear on the other side, it'll seal that up. You know, you have to change them every once in a while, but beats taking apart and putting new bearings and stuff in them.
Yeah.
Dave, have you tried to make reed valves?
No, I never have. Oh, I take that back. I did too make a set of reed valves one time. They're little tiny ones, but I did remember the old banding strap. That's kind of spring steel. I cut them, made them out of that because it was flat. And all I had to do was cut it, you know. It worked.
So you want some kind of a tempered steel or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, it's gotta be tempered. Or, you know, you can make them out of a good,
What about feeler gauges?
yeah, or just, make, you know, tool steel sheet, and then, temper it. But you gotta get that right so it don't crack or break on you.
I use truck mud flap material.
I've got at home, a gray marine engine, single cylinder, 12 horse, thing stands about that high. You know, it's got a piston in it like this, it's 2-cycle.
Dave, the diesels that Russell has and that Jed and I play with, they're 2-strokes. On the internet, on Smokestack, there are pictures of a big one like Russell's that blew up. The crankcase split and the cylinder went through the roof of the building. And it shows the damage that went on, and of course there's 14 different ideas of what happened. But it shows in the picture that the brake on the crankcase is fresh. It wasn't an old crack or an old brake.
Yeah.
So the theory is that it exploded in the crankcase. Well, a diesel probably wouldn't do that, but it could.
They will.
The other one was,
Horse boat will do it too under the right conditions.
yeah, the other one, theory was that it hydraulically locked. They cranked it over, the one piston fired and blew the other one off. Well, I wouldn't think you could even get it cranked over if it was hydraulically locked, so it's quite a discussion, and it's scary. Nobody got hurt, and it destroyed the building it was sitting in.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
The rod and piston's laying there with the skirt broke out of the piston, the rod's still hooked on the crank. So, it's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I'll try next month to bring my Seaver crop. It's a 2-stroke engine. It's 2 cylinders, 1 connecting rod.
Oh, yeah, that'd be.
And I've had it apart many times. It's more interesting apart than it is together. He's got one that's together, I think,
Yeah, and runs a little bit.
and runs a little bit. They're a goofy thing, because both pistons go up and down together, the crankcase is not sealed. One piston charges the other piston. So,
Yeah.
I'll try to bring that. I messed up, I thought this was our Gerlinger talk today.
Also, yeah, go ahead.
I have a Model C long drag saw that has Timken bearings, and then it's got seals on the out, you know, after the bearings, if it's got seals, it does not have grease cups or oilers or anything, the only oiler is the one on top that drips onto the crankshaft, and that feeds in to lubricate the bearings, and then the seals keep it from leaking out.
Yeah.
It was kind of unusual, I don't, it's a neat drag saw.
Yeah. Well, this self-oiling on the 2-cycle engines, you know, come out, and you know, like on the motorcycles and stuff, and everybody goes, oh, that's such a new thing. I've got I think a 1910, 1916 Faro engine that's self-oiling, 2-cycle engine. So, you know, a lot of this stuff is not new. It's just people forgot about it and they bring it back out.
Is it self-oiling where you have a reservoir of oil? You
Yeah,
need
it's
full?
a tank next to the crankcase, and crankcase pressurizes that tank, blows it up to your adjustments, so you got drip oilers for everything.
Yeah, I've got some of those German, 2-stroke diesel, holder tractors, and those have an oil tank, you gotta keep the oil full in, but you just dump standard diesel in it, you know, and so that must be how those work.
Yeah.
Small reservoir inside the block, so that
Right.
the crankcase pressure keep pushing oil up to the reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there was a check valve there,
yeah.
so.
I noticed, on model airplane, they made a big thing about being four-stroke with valve, but they still have to mix the oil and the gas to lubricate the bottom end, to blow by and to still make the four-cycle string trimmer, but you still gotta mix oil in it. The four cycles, it sounds different than the two-stroke.
I got a 4-cycle string trimmer that you don't have to mix the oil in.
Oh, you don't?
Uh-uh.
So how do you lubricate the bottom end?
Crankcase.
Oh, okay, well, these things don't have crankcases.
So what is the reason that the two-stroke engines are known for lasting longer than a four-stroke?
Right offhand, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, like the old lawn boy lawnmowers, those would just run forever, you know, if you kept the oil mix in the gas, opposed to a four-cycle one.
Well, I would say it has to do with the people that are operating
But
it.
that may be,
Four cycles, because the kids are trying to sabotage it so they don't have to mow the lawn.
That reminds me, when I was a kid, my dad said, "Oh, I got you kids a, new lawnmower." "Oh, great, gas-powered lawnmower." No, it's electric.
yeah.
That cord got shorter and shorter. Seemed like I ran over it all the time. Oh, darn. Your dad fixed it.
It's getting harder to buy something that's got a real engine on it.
Yeah,
Well, you can in California.
that's right.
That's a different country.
Well, it is, although I have heard that you will not, in 25, you will, there's 5 states, and Oregon's one of them, that you won't be able to buy a diesel motorhome. Has anybody heard anything about that?
Yeah,
That may
I
change
heard
after
that.
January 20th.
Well, but not necessarily for Oregon, in California and Washington.
Well,
And I don't know what it has to
California
do
comes
with,
up
but,
with
We
this
haven't got
stuff.
a diesel truck either.
yeah.
And the rest of a lot of the whole west coast follows California,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
the left coast.
yeah.
Well, I've heard California by 2030, all locomotives have to be electric powered.
Well, yeah, they want all their
There are
over-the-road trucks to be
It's got an
electric
engine on
too.
the
So
engine.
commerce is just gonna stop. They don't think it through.
Oh, well,
Let's not go down that road, it irritates me so
What
much.
about the electric fire trucks, they have to have a diesel engine on it for the pump,
yeah.
so
gonna have to have a lot of those in
It's ridiculous.
calling fire on Star, units on.
Our batteries.
Yeah, we're charging a fire truck, yeah. Yeah, insanity.
So what are you doing for your oil mix on your engines?
I just go with the newer oils and what they recommend.
Like 16 to 1 or?
Yeah.
Because originally, I read an owner's manual for the old Pacific pumpers that were at Crossway. And it said non-detergent 30 weight, 1 quart to 4 gallons or 16 to 1. But yeah, now with the synthetic oils and stuff,
Yeah.
I wonder what you thought. You still keep the same ratio, but you're just using the newer oil.
Yeah, and if it smokes, just back a little off a little bit with the oil.
I've heard some guys, I watched videos that have said if you're using the new synthetic, just go with the 50 to 1, even if it said 16 to 1, because the oil is so much better, but I don't know, but that's what they were saying.
I can run the outboard 50 to 1 on synthetic, it runs fine.
Yeah.
Used to say 30 to 1.
Yeah.
But how long will it last?
Yeah, it should, yeah.
Been around a long
Yeah, the
time.
guy has to repair it, I'm gonna do what it says.
So, now, I've got a question on that. On the more modern two-cycle, a whole bunch of them will have one mixed ratio, then there'll be another bunch that'll have a different one. And how come some have to have a different ratio than others?
Manufacturer recommendations.
Emissions. Have something to do with it. I'm actually running 40 to 1 mixture in my heaters and stuff.
I've got a 3-wheel Harley Davidson, golf cart. Steve had one too.
Yeah, maybe I've had one.
Anyway, it has a 2-stroke engine in it, and I used to call it the blue streak, because you drive it along and you get this blue streak. It came, just little magic marker on there, it said 16 to 1 was the ratio. So for years I drove it like that, and then I finally got a manual, the real manual from Harley, and it's supposed to be 80-1. And it took care of that blue streak right away as soon as they started mixing that one.
Yeah.
No more skeeter killer, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I didn't go 80, but 50-1.
Some of the older engines, like I had a 125 Harley, you know, that was a little two-cycle engine on it, and it used 40 weight oil mixed with it, and had a little cup in the gas tank to take it out, fill it with it, put it in, fill it up with gas. You know, never blew any blue smoke.
You know, I used to work for a Johnson Ever dealership, and when they came out with that 51 synthetic oil, they said, the factory said we could run that in all the older engines that had the brass or bronze bushings at 51. And we did, with their oil. Never had a problem. There's enough oil.
Yeah.
Has anybody else noticed that the new two-cycle oils sting your eyes more than just plain old 30 weight? I switched to.
Keep your oily fingers out of your eyes.
Oh, man, it's just bad.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it was just the brain, Probably.
Any other questions? Well, you can come on up here and look at this stuff. And like I say, you can see the wristband and stuff, the same flashlight on that Maytag. Look in there and you'll see what I'm talking about. Sloppy wristband.